All right, let's talk about the ugly duckling. We all think we know it, right? It's that sweet little story from when we were kids. But what if I told you it's actually one of the deepest stories ever written about who we are, about rejection, and about what it really truly means to belong? Well, today, we're going to peel back the layers on a tale that is so much more than you remember.
You know, on the surface, sure, it's a story about a bird that doesn't quite fit in, but if you look just a little closer, you'll see it's this incredible metaphor for the human experience. It's for anyone, you, me, anyone who's ever felt like an outsider, who's been judged for being different, or just struggled to find their place. So, is this really just about a duckling becoming a swan, or is it a mirror reflecting our own lives right back at us?
So before we get into all those hidden meanings, let's just do a quick refresher on the story itself. It starts in a place that should feel like home, but it almost immediately becomes a nightmare.
I mean, right from the moment he cracks out of his shell, the duckling is a problem. He's just wrong. He's too big, he's the wrong color, and his own mother's first reaction is basically, oh no, this one's ugly. Can you imagine? The very first judgment he ever hears comes from the one who was supposed to be his greatest champion.
And it doesn't just stop with his mom. Oh no, the whole barnyard gets in on it. His mother is so ashamed she tells him, just walk behind everyone else, I don't want anyone to see you. And of course, the other animals, like the hen, they all pile on. The entire social world around him just becomes this constant chorus of insults.
So what's a guy to do? He runs. He runs away. But it doesn't matter where he goes, it's the same story. He's chased out of every little bit of shelter he finds. He's alone, he's freezing, and worse, he starts to believe them. He starts to think, maybe I am flawed, maybe I am unlovable.
Okay, so here's where it gets really fascinating. This story about all this pain and suffering, it wasn't just pulled out of thin air. The pain felt real because the author, Hans Christian Andersen, was writing about the one person he knew inside and out, himself.
See, Andersen himself was often described as, well, as an ugly kid. He was tall and clumsy with a big nose and big feet, and he was just relentlessly bullied. He knew exactly what it felt like to be an outcast, and he poured all of that pain into this story about a little gray bird. And hey, don't just take my word for it. Andersen himself said it. He was talking to a famous critic, Georg Brandes, and he straight up told him, my autobiography had already been written in The Ugly Duckling. The duckling struggle, that was his struggle.
But hold on, because there might be another secret layer here. Some historians have this wild theory that Andersen might have been the illegitimate son of a Danish prince. Now, if that's true, think about it. The duckling doesn't just become beautiful. He becomes a swan, a noble, majestic, almost royal bird. Maybe it was Andersen's way of saying he too was from a nobler family than anyone knew.
All right, so the story is intensely personal for Andersen, but it also just nails a universal truth about how we figure out who we are. To really get it, we need to talk about this really cool idea from psychology that explains the duckling's whole problem.
So, let's talk about something called the mirror stage. It's a concept from a guy named Jacques Lacan. And put simply, the idea is that we don't just wake up one day and decide who we are. Our sense of self gets built by how other people see us, how they reflect us back to ourselves. This social mirror, if you will, tells us who we're supposed to be.
And this explains the duckling's tragedy perfectly. First, the world holds up this mirror that just screams ugly back at him. Then, since that's the only reflection he ever sees, he starts to believe it. He internalizes it completely. And the end result? A totally shattered sense of self. He thinks he's worthless because that's what the social mirror told him he was.
There's this one moment in the story that just hits you. He runs into a hunting dog. The dog sniffs him and then just leaves him alone. You'd think he'd be relieved, right? But nope. His first thought is, the dog didn't eat me because I'm so ugly. He's so deep in it that he twists an act of mercy into just another confirmation of his own worthlessness.
So, the duckling feels ugly. We get it. But we all know the famous ending. He grows up and becomes a beautiful swan. And this, right here, is where the big debate about the story's real message kicks in. Is this a story about changing who you are, or about finding where you belong?
So this is the core question, right? What are we supposed to take away from this? Is the lesson that to be loved, you have to become beautiful by society's standards? Or is it saying that the real key isn't changing yourself at all, but finding the people who see you and love you for who you've been all along? Now, one side of the argument says the moral's actually kind of shallow. They see it as this simple revenge fantasy.
The outcast doesn't get accepted because of his good heart or his personality. Nope, he wins because he gets a magical glow-up. He becomes even hotter than his bullies, which, let's be honest, feels a little less like a deep life lesson and a little more like wishful thinking.
But there's a much more powerful way to read this. This other perspective says the duckling never really changes at all. He was always a swan. The whole ugly duck thing was just a mistake, a bad label. The real transformation wasn't in his body. It was in his surroundings. When he finally finds other swans, he finally finds the right mirror, one that reflects his true self back at him for the very first time.
In this whole debate, is it about changing yourself or finding your people? That is exactly why this story is still so powerful today. So powerful, in fact, that people are retelling it to tackle some of the biggest questions of our own time, totally flipping the message for a new generation.
I mean, just look at this journey. You've got Andersen writing his soul out in 1843. Then 100 years later, Lacan gives us the psychological key to unlock it. And then fast forward to 2018, and a theater company is using that same story to talk about gender identity. It's amazing.
So in this new stage version, the duckling isn't bullied for being gray. They're bullied for wearing purple in a world that says you can only be pink or blue. It completely flips the script. The moral isn't about the individual changing to fit in anymore. Instead, the pressure is on the world to change, to open its eyes and make room for everyone.
The playwright, Willow Reichard Flynn, said it perfectly. The point wasn't for the duckling to become a swan to finally be loved. The point was to imagine a world that learns to love the duckling just as they are. That's a huge shift, right? It puts the responsibility on society, not on the outcast. So, from a lonely boy who felt ugly to a groundbreaking theory on identity, all the way to a modern play about gender, the ugly duckling has always been a mirror reflecting the struggles of the time. And I guess that leaves one final question. When you look into that mirror, what does it show you?